certain category, we think if you spend some time in that category, you're going to improve that ability. And that doesn't necessarily work that way. Let's say in a sprint world, we divide it by acceleration, maximum speed, and speed endurance. So if you want to build up speed endurance, you need to spend, I don't know, performing 80 to 100 meters sprints. And some, correct me if I'm wrong, some coaches prefer doing 150 to 300 meters to improve speed endurance. Or chop the distance in a shorter period and decrease the recovery time. In my mind, there are two ways of describing or classifying the building blocks. Using goals, so what do you want to achieve, and means, or how you gonna achieve that. The question is who's first, chicken or the egg? And as you can see, they are both important, and they are not exclusive but complementary aspects. So we have two ways to classify periodization model, and also there are many roads to Rome. So, for example, if I want to develop my VO2 max, as I alluded before, I might do it in many different ways. So, if I say the goal is VO2 max, then I have a couple of means I could use to achieve it. And different theorists use different approaches to classify periodization systems. So, Bondarchuk approach, currently popular in track and field. I got a lot of from Tom Crick and Derek Everly from UK Athletics. So as you can see, we have competitive components, exercises, specialized developmental, specialized preparatory, and general preparatory. So all the stuff they do over here is categorized differently. So the competition event, CE, or actually running 100-meter distance, is the most specific aspect, and going back to the general might involve general circuits, strength circuit, stretching, coordination, and stuff like that. So based on distribution of these four components, we can build up different training systems. According to Bondarchuk, this is the traditional way of putting all those bricks together. I'm not going to spend much time going into these graphs. So in a block system, as I said before, with Yuri Verkhoshansky, he spent developing motor potential first and kind of transforming it into a technique later. Or, for example, in a throwing rule, you're probably going to spend improving your bench press, incline bench press, squat over here, and then you're going to start using throwing actually to kind of transform it into a skill. Complex training involves all four components done in parallel. I believe this is the approach that Bondarchuk used. I'm not the expert on him. I read a couple of books by him, so that's the only thing I know, and probably most of you know more than me about this one. And in sprint world, that might mean doing sprints, all the different components of the race, strength and explosive work, and doing the general preparatory exercises and methods. So another approach is using goals. Most of the theories like Bompa and Surin, they prefer this way. And in this particular case, motor abilities are actually goals. So we usually say, this block is going to improve my strength. This block is going to improve my speed, or this block I might improve my speed endurance. And then I'm going to switch to maximum velocity or acceleration, depending. Again, you might be aware of this in long to short or short to long approach to sprint training. So again, we have, if we have different goals we need to develop, most of you that held the lectures today most of you said this is the components we need to develop, and then you need to decide how are you going to develop it. So you might prefer a parallel approach where you develop all of them together, or something like this sequential approach. This is a sharp transition where you just quit doing something and then just start developing another goal. And this is more like a smooth variation, where they actually kind of slowly change from one goal to another goal. This is a Surin approach, block training. Pretty much in block A he developed basic motor abilities. In this case, that might be aerobic power and strength. Then he switched to goal number 3, depending on the sport, and the one that's shortest, goal number 4. And his rationale behind this theory is that the declining of motor ability. So if you spend some time building, let's say, goal number 1, in this case might be strength, it's going to go up, and when you start doing it, it's going to slowly go down. And at the competition date, you got most of the residual factors, residual training effects, pretty much on a good level to be performing. And one idea behind this approach is you don't have much energy to develop everything at the same time, and some of the components are not compatible. And that's still a question. We have a lot of studies showing positive effects of concurrent training and negative effects of concurrent training. And that's pretty much one of my main interests, because I work in team sports, and that's a mixed sport where we need a blend between endurance and speed and strength. This is also a Surin model. These are mini blocks put into a block just to maintain those residual training effects of the previous blocks. So as you can see, he spent some time developing these two, then he switched to goal number 3. But to avoid complete detraining of these two, he just injected those mini blocks. Pretty much the same as the previous model, but plus these mini blocks. You might saw the sport form under the graph. So this one, sport form development. And sport form is nothing else than a cyclical nature of sporting results. You know, you cannot be a top shape all year, and it's kind of comes and goes in waves. Different athletes, different ways. In Russian literature, it's usually split into three parts, and it's attainment, relative stability, and breakdown. And I look at it as a wave. So if you're riding a wave, you need to see a good wave, catch it, ride it for some time, and then you need to drop off it unless you want to hit the rocks at the end. Then you need to again catch the new one. So in most of the periodization system, they try to manage the cyclical nature of sporting results. You can find more on this link underneath. So common sets of assumptions is that the established timeframes exist for the development of certain motor abilities. We also believe that different attributes are best developed in sequence. And we also believe that there are some idealized training structures, time frames, and progression schemes that should be done with everyone. So, usually someone asks you, how much I need to be in a speed endurance zone? How much do I need to do it? Maybe 3 or 4 weeks. You don't know. You need to start with something with your knowledge, but eventually you need to adapt it to who you're working with. So, two major assumptions comes from these all these mentioned models is that we can we can predict the biological adaptation, and we can also predict the future training. All this comes from a great article by John Keeley. I highly suggest checking this one out. I'm going to refer to this one a couple more times in the lectures. So from the same article, managing training is probably related to, again, complementary pair, managing variety of training and managing focus. So if we spend, if we try to develop a lot of components, it might be fun, but eventually we disperse our adaptation energy to different components, and we can reach the best effects. On the flip side, if we put a lot of focus on a certain component, we're gonna reach higher performance. But on the flip side, we might increase monotony and chance of injury and chance of being boring at the practice. So I believe coaches needs to juggle these two in a unique way for a given individual. Again, most of the periodization models are quite rational, so we don't have many evidence if they are actually working or not. We have the rational thought, all those theories, and it's up to us to take that as some part, and at the end we need to experiment with what we have and with our own athletes, and see what works for them and what doesn't. Dan Pfaff, probably familiar to all of you. So we need to realign with the biological complexity. The thing is, we never know how someone's going to react to a given training. So Dan identified a couple of components: stimulate, adapt, stabilize, and actualize. And that's pretty much related to a sport form phenomena I alluded before that. Also, something that he calls chronic load syndrome and acute relieving syndrome. That's also related to variety and focus. So if you spend a lot of time focusing on certain components, we might get a chronic load syndrome. The things might just start working. And if you have a lot of relieving syndrome, for example, giving a full day off before a competition, the athlete might misperform or perform pretty lousy. So we need to juggle between those two as coaches. One thing I think contributes to the problem is studies. So the studies take the group averages, take the p-values, and try to make inferences to a population. So the researchers, they don't care about the individual, at least not lately. So they care if certain training effect has certain training has an effect on a population. So they try to make inferences on using a p-value instead of caring about the individual. And we can see huge individual variability in training reaction. So this graph over here shows changes in VO2 max. So this is delta VO2 max for athletes with different starting level of VO2 max. Each dot is one athlete. So we have guys who are pretty high in VO2 max. They, for a same training, this guy improved not much, and this guy improved a lot. Same over here, the guy with a small VO2 max to begin with, he improved a little bit, and this guy with same level improved a lot. So there's no chance we can, at least not yet, we can know how someone's going to react to our training. These two studies also quite interesting. They showed in this one, they showed that rugby players responded differently to a strength training depending on their reaction in terms of saliva testosterone. So they get a couple of strength sessions. For example, doing 4 sets of 10, 5 sets of 5, or I don't know, 6 six sets of 2, and they measure testosterone response. So they show that the guys who perform the session that creates the biggest testosterone response for them improve the most. So it's this couple of studies show that there's a huge individual variability in reaction to training. So solution is a career in modeling. And one interesting study, or actually interesting paper, but by Philip Skiba. He's a triathlete coach. He adapted the Bannister impulse response model. So if you keep track of the workloads and you keep track of the performance, you might get, he's an impulse reaction model that gives you the best organization of the training. In this graph over here, and by the way, this article is freely available online, you can model the organization and duration of the blocks. In this case, this is a graph, I don't understand the mathematics behind it, but in this graph, he showed that this is a competition date. The highest workload needs to be in this area, and this is the duration of the peaking phase. And as he said, in triathletes, different athletes need different organization, and that comes back to the topic that we don't know how long the taper needs to last, how long that special endurance phase needs to last, and the solution is using information, monitoring, and building your own models. Again, this is not without problems. I'm gonna show you a couple of problems in the last screen. The tool of 3 levels is a tool, is my approach to kind of taking everything, as I said up till now, bottom up and top down design, taking biological complexity and environmental constraints. Sometimes it's not about doing the best practice, it's about doing what you can. And trust me, I know that from team sports. Also using a feed forward and feedback systems. Feedback is just getting information back from the athlete, how he responded. And this is pretty much the same thing as structural rigidity, taking a certain periodization model and being responsive to the feedback information you got back. Also paying attention to motor skill, motor abilities, and all the categories you develop, taking into account focus variety, as I said, also the distinction between 2 types of classifications, means and goals, sport form, and this is pretty much related to everything above it. So we have 3 levels. I call it periodization, planning, and programming. So one way to look at it is using the travel. So I came from Stockholm to Sundsvall. I need to know point A and point B. That's related to the first level. Second level might be a GPS. It tells me where I need to turn, probably. And if I don't pay attention, I might kill someone on a crossroad. So you need to pay attention to all 3 levels. So in this case, if I pay attention to only level 3, being responsive to athlete, and I have no clue where I'm going, still not going to bring me anywhere. So all 3 are pretty related, and all 3 are very important. And all those distinctions, again, these are all buckets, as I alluded in the beginning. The borders between them are not so crisp, they are fuzzy still. So level 1 involves defining structures. In this case, that's competition calendar, meets, travel, everything that you probably cannot control. Also, needs analysis, the SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, pretty common management tool. Who you're dealing with, what's the sport, what are the goals of the period, sport form, which you can gain some idea from previous results, previous years, all the tendencies and all the categories you create. As I said, in most of the lectures we hear till now, we got different categories in terms of relay, different categories we need to develop, and we can consider those as goals. So how we're going to address those, it's a problem of level 2. Talking about goals, we have outcome, performance, and process goals. Outcome is, I want to be first on a meet. Performance might be related, I want to run 10.20, and process is related to how much training I need to put into a journey to that goal. And this comes back to stoicism, is what can we control of all these three. I would say only process. So setting all these goals, outcome and performance, only gives us some objective we can strive for, but the thing we can control is the process. So I can say I want to increase my bench press for 5%, but that might not happen. The thing I cannot control it. I can control only my training and my recovery. So the thing is, we put so much emphasis on these two and kind of neglect this one. And again, level 1 is being aware where you are and where you want to be. Level 2, as I said, we set up different goals in level number 1, and level 2 is about how you're going to organize it. So again, that comes to parallel serial development. So if I have 5 goals, I might address them immediately, all 4 together, or in a sequential way. Also, this distributed and concentrated, also a squiggle, which the pretty simple example is I use is if I have 3 buckets and I have 1 kilogram of sugar, 1 kilogram of salt and flour, I might distribute them differently. So I might put all sugar in one bucket, all salt in another one, and flour in a third one. Or I can just 1/3 here, 1/3 here. And how I'm gonna distribute all those loads is in this level over here, in level number 2. In this, let's say, talking about sprinting training, we want to develop acceleration, max speed, and strength endurance. How are we going to approach developing those goals? We might approach them trying to develop all 3 at the same time, or having different periods aimed at different goals. So that's related to solving the parallel and serial and distributed and concentrated squiggles. Again, what means I'm going to use? That's using a Bondarchuk approach, because I can develop speed using more general approach or more specific stuff. For example, general might be doing hill sprints, and specific might be do work on track in spikes, depending on time of the year and sport form development defined by level number 1. Level number 3 is organization of the workloads for each of those goals and sub-goals we define in level number 2. Basically, week content, how we're going to distribute the workloads in a given week. For example, if I need to spend, let's say, 1,000 meters doing speed work, how am I gonna divide it in 1 week? Am I gonna do 1,000 one day, or am I gonna do a little bit, or 3,000 meters every other day, or every single day I'm gonna do around 100 something meters? So it's about how you're gonna distribute the workloads aimed at goals and sub goals in a smaller time frame. Again, we also have variety and focus, concentrated, distributed, and in this level, athlete is usually smarter than the coach. So you need to see what suits the athlete and adapt the training to him. Monitor reaction and try to auto-regulate the workloads. In sprint training, as far as I know, Charlie Francis believed in high easy or hard easy. So he had 2 or 3 hard days where he did most of the speed work, and on the other days he performed tempo workouts. And some coaches might prefer some other approach. Then again, it comes to the individual athlete, what he's responsive to in terms of fatigue and what brings the results up.